things are getting tougher. As easy it is to build a business right now, it's also, I think, just as tough to actually understand what's going on in your business.
Totally.
Because there is issues with attribution. There's issues with fees. People are taking out loans at 13% rates and don't understand the true effect of it.
You should know the health of your business.
Right.
But if you could have the healthiest businesses, but then you have a big purchase order, that's the same point with like growth as the other way.
100%.
And I think right now is the lack of inability to know every variable, like not just iOS, but iOS plus COVID.
Yeah.
Like to your point of AI, you can have all the tools, but if you didn't have someone pull out that parameter of COVID, the models would crash.
Welcome back to season 3 of Chew on This. And today we got a couple of surprises. We have a guest that you guys have obviously not met yet. And that is actually Robbie Bhathal, who is sitting to the left of me. He actually runs our VP of Finance and an operations department. And he's been an excellent beneficiary to how Obvi has grown, and also provides a lot of the insights you guys get to read at Chew on This. And secondly, and the most important piece of today's episode is we got to have Robbie Bhathal, who is CEO and co-founder of Brightflow AI, an incredible tool we use in the finance department. And we're excited to have someone who is going to change up the narrative of what we usually talk about, which is marketing and growth, and talk about something that is probably the most important in the era of D2C and brand building today, which is financial literacy, financial knowledge, financial exposure. So without further ado, Robbie, give us a little bit about your background. What the hell is Brightflow and why you're here?
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, I'm here in person because the first time we had a fire alarm. No, but I met these guys. I just randomly was seeing the background, and then they left. And there was a fire alarm. Well, I am the founder and CEO of Brightflow AI. My background, it was in finance. I did applied mathematics at an undergrad and went straight into finance and in New York and before the crash. And it all kind of went away. And then after a little soul searching and a couple degrees, I went in to start my own business after a stint at Capital One, building product around the data and a lot of data products like business intelligence tools. But in terms of my own business, when the first time I built my business, the hardest thing was just managing my own cash. And I was in finance. I was like, how hard can it be? Especially when you have things like daily revenue or you're driving. Visibility is hard because you don't have your engineering teams to build it out. So, after COVID hit and I had a travel company, and obviously it wasn't the most ideal market, I think I went off and tried to build my own product. And it was really around this kind of idea of I wanted to level the playing field in finance. And if finance is such a learned trait, for the everyday owner. And when I think of everyday owners, I think of people that can build small businesses. And I think and that's really what Brightflow is. We consider ourselves like an AI financial services business. We focus on cash visibility, so the simple tooling, workflow of what a finance would do. But finance is just more, a CFO is more than just the workflow. That's just part of it. Really is around the decision making, the plannings, the risk assessments of cash. Money comes in and out, different timings of cash, and it's really hard to manage. And it's easy to just press a button and turn on revenue. It's hard to clean it up in the back. And that's not just accounting. So I think this is where finance to me, and then the other side of it is level the playing field and access to capital. Being a founder, I think there's always you can either do equity or you just do this type of, but there's a real big need for capital market fit. And that requires it's usually humans, who you know.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you don't have the right Rolodex or the right place, it's hard to do that. And specifically credit, and so that's where we sit, where we wanted to make it easy for people to understand their own cash position. We call it, we help companies manage and grow their most important assets, which is cash, and manage it. So, but also to be able to know how to dress to get access to it. What's the credit score? What do I look like? How does, and so I think that's our focus.
It's amazing. One of the things I really like that you said is the capital market fit. I haven't heard that term be used, but it makes so much sense. And I think, even if you roll that back a little bit, right, you guys have to obviously first understand what a business is doing and how they're performing, and obviously that piece. And so talk a little bit more about, in the creation of with Brightflow, what was like, and you have the AI piece to it, right? What does that build out look like? And if somebody who doesn't use your tool, if you can give us a 60-second rundown, I set up with you, what should my expectation as a founder or somebody who's using the product on that finance side, what should it be to learn from?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting thing you brought up, because I mean, it's very unique that you have people like finance. I mean, when finance, most people are, if you think about like the triangle, same thing with like product market fit, distribution market fit, and then capital market fit. It like allows for the other two. And as you get more distribution and capital, it gets harder, right? Supply chains, you buy. So it's just like, to me, it's just like an S&OP process. And so the S&OP is usually sales and operations, but finance is the one that helps you forecast it, or vets the forecasting for So I think that's equivalent when I was thinking about it. And so like I implanted myself as CFO of a few brands. And I think that there's the workflow side. So just one is just being able to gut check your business. If you're selling on Shopify and they pay you X dollars later, and then you sell on Amazon, they pay you Y dollars later. If I'm a owner of a business and I'm just running my own credit, I'm like, oh man, I made $100 today. You didn't. They're going to take your net fees, net commissions, FBA. By the end of it, you've got 32 cents on the dollar. And it's not bad. You've got revenue and you want that velocity, but in essence, you're not getting that money, but you have payroll to pay. And it's easier now to build a business than ever before. There's no CapEx. There's like distribution. You got fulfillment. You've got ship. Everything is simple, quick buttons to do it. But the hard part is like to assess it and to manage it and to gut check it. And then it's like running a local grocery store. My dad ran a small restaurant. It was easier to gut check one restaurant and say I can have a livelihood if you have a good manager. But it's hard to gut check 2 and 3, and so that's like distribution to me. And then you buy for 2, for 3, and then the buying becomes like terms, and then who has better terms? And so I think that's where when I talk about capital market fits, I'm saying that like it's a combination of what you want. Is it like a sustainable business? How volatile is the market? How liquid is the market? Can you get access to cash? Those things are, the founder might just know it, so he might not need us. Or if you're going straight up and to the right for like 5 years, it's a gut check if you're like just killing it on low carb Lucky Charms. Like, I mean, there's certain products that just hit, and there's some distribution that just hits. But for the majority of the business, it's some combination, and you need the right financial knowledge. It's like, you do it with stocks, you do your trust, your personal, but on the business level, you don't have that. Like, how do you assess your business's long-term wealth?
No, it's great. I think that knowledge base is, especially after what we've gone through post iOS, right? Where there's an expectation that was made with marketing and dollars spent. And now there is this like, you know what? Forget expecting anything. There are a lot of people who have no idea what they're even getting. And so I think you come in this really cool spot where it's like, I think typically we've seen people look at, okay, here's what I'm doing on a revenue basis, and then they'll wait for the P&L. Right. And it's like everything in between, it's kind of this mishmash of like, we'll figure it out. We hope, right? There's a lot of hope and trust in the system. And I think the fact that you guys are providing that relevancy of like, hey, you can't just build on hope. You have to actually know. And I think that crossover is becoming more important than ever. Because I think things are getting tougher. As easy it is to build a business right now, it's also, I think, just as tough to actually understand what's going on in your business. Because there is issues with attribution. There's issues with fees. People are taking out loans at 13% rates and don't understand the true effect of it. There are financial tools that take percentage of revenue and don't understand the draw effect of that, right? Like, there's
or the seasonality
of the business. So many layers.
Or you buy it with credit card, and then the credit card's due in January when you take out the seasonality hits in December. I mean, there's a lot of people that have scaled to good local product market fit. Like the great thing about this, the way it is now, you can build a nice, good business. And have a very good sustainable, but that's a hard thing to do in a world of like unicorns, and everyone's like assumption is that's it. But how many consumer brand unicorns are there.
That's right.
And how
That's
many
right.
things, but there's a lot of sustainable businesses that fit in a local niche market, that find a local, and they, when I say low sustain, it's like 8 figures, 9, it can be a great business with how far you can reach.
That's right.
I think, I hear you on that. The attribution, the P&L, in Indian phrase, they always say passe in, passe out, money in, money out, right? But the hard part is P&L is not that.
Yes.
That's like, it's like an accounting principle that like you attribute revenue. So, but you don't know it's real cash out because you already bought the inventory.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like COGS is just a non-cash line item. It's how good you're selling. You should know the health of your business.
Right.
But if you could have the healthiest businesses, but then you have a big purchase order, that's the same point with like growth as the other way.
100%.
And I think right now is the lack of inability to know every variable, like not just iOS, but in iOS plus COVID.
Yeah.
Like to your point of AI, you can have all the tools, but if you didn't have someone pull out that parameter of COVID, the models would crash.
Correct.
So at some point you need, like finance is a learned thing, like legal. Yeah. You need someone to be able to mess with the assumptions.
Yeah.
The drivers, right?
No, you nailed it.
And I think that's the big thing here is we tend to just say like someone needs to be, you need more loop, less human, allows for better, lower cost of advice is the way I think about it in those services.
No, I want to double down with this with Ravi in the sense of like, you know, we're talking about the product's utility and obviously what it's doing on a theoretical and literacy point, but also application, right? Like how have you touched on just how you've been able to use the tool, what it's done for you, and give us that relative viewpoint from Obvi.
Yeah, so at Obvi right now, we're basically mapping out our entire cash window just on Google Sheets. And we're pulling in the data from, Shopify, Triple Whale, Meta, Google, all the ad spend and everything, and using some like actual data and then kind of using blended assumptions on, fixed overhead, COGS, discounts, everything. And kind of to your point, that gets the job done well enough where we can give high level guidance and projections. But using Brightflow, you guys get as granular as possible where every line item expense on your P&L is pretty much accounted for and projected out, and not just using like actuals with some layer of projection, but kind of using your AI to actually account for seasonality. What did you guys do last year? What do we expect you guys to be doing based off, anything that the AI is seeing? So that's been super helpful with us just getting more concrete and predictable cash flow projections there. So yeah, that's how we've been doing it at Obvi, but excited to learn more. What else are you kind of building out at Brightflow? Any new innovations or anything like that?
The way you use your words on describing us, because that's how we view ourselves. We want to be the gut check. We want to help you gut check. You can do a lot of the stuff that your business more than we do, but we give you a lens that maybe gives you another perspective. Yeah. And I think that perspective is really what we're trying to do. So our first thing was always cash visibility. So the hard part with AI or any kind of machine learning with things like finance as well as things like inventory is finance is like a charter of accounts. And so if you rely on accounting, that's a human that's accounting for it. Same thing with a SKU number on an Excel sheet. So how do you categorize something when everything is different? Right? And so we leverage the bank data. And so we just launched a cash position that gives every one of our customers to give banks data their actual cash position, and through we leverage bank data for really around COGS. So things like your inventory is accounted for, but you really don't know the true inventory you're spending in cash outflow on a perpetual basis, even if so it's cash P&L. So that's where we get your revenue drivers directly from revenue, and that's why our models are well on the demand forecast. So we give a free product. So our own acquisition is around giving the tool, because I think the visibility should be free, in my mind. At some point, someone's going to give you that visibility. So, but across channels hard, because Amazon doesn't have all the APIs built. There's a lot of things that haven't been piped. You can pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for data, but that's a lot of work you have to do yourself to build just one lens, when that lens changes all the time. So I feel we can be plus one. So I think that's innovations on forecasting, better forecasting, bringing ROAS, more marketing-based ROAS into our modules. So if you're downloading daily data, I'm able to do a daily statistical model. It's better than you taking every month. Just mathematical. It's just going to be better.
Yeah.
If I'm doing it every day, it gives you just a better lens. It's not better meaning it's better than you. You might know more. That's the hard part here.
Yeah.
Is if I show you your numbers, the number one thing people say is like, those aren't our numbers, because they're used to seeing gross revenue. And they don't know we strip out net of refunds and returns, and that's pure cash.
Right.
Yep.
But in their head, they're thinking, I made this. And so that disconnect is like that trust.
Yeah.
So what we did initially is visibility. Then the forecasting is our bread and butter and ML. And that's where we want to spend time in like quality of forecasts. Hard part is offline because it's like weekly. So that's where we're building on that part. And then the other stuff we've been trying to do a lot of is on like a 13-week cash flow.
Yeah.
But what we always found is like, to me, product is giving data to someone to make workflow, giving you to something to make you do something better, or it could be the delivery of that data to you to make you make a better decision. So like 13-week cash flow in your inbox. And that's our 13-week cash flow based off our model. You can buy it or not. You can, but people like they can fight it, but they come back. Like people just stay connected, and they like that. It's like almost like consumer psychology, like in that same way.
Yeah.
So I've always viewed our product in that acquisition like consumer, like the CEOs of these companies are brand owners. They want simplicity. They then need help in making the decisions. They're not like, they're thinking about, and they need planning. So you either hire someone or you have some other view. So those are the innovations we're doing it on: forecasting, better labeling, more channels.
Phenomenal.
But the same outcome is like, how do we give you more human interaction, advice on your balance sheet stuff? So like more like inventory stuff we've been putting out there.
Yeah.
So we tested a lot of things with our customers because I think everybody has a different need. As long as they can trust your data, I think that's been our number one thing: the quality of our information, things that they fight back on.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I was actually just gonna ask, like, if you guys are going more into like the inventory side. I know right now you guys are tracking SKU velocity, either at the SKU level or kind of like category, like product category, like you were saying. Are you thinking about integrating with like 3PLs and warehouses to like get the inventory on hand, have the SKU velocity, and then be able to identify like, hey, this is how many days you have left, maybe place a new reorder?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think not right now. But what we look at in the lens of SKUs is on cash inflow, outflow. So like COGS, like real cash P&L stuff. So like, the reason we do all this stuff and why we want to give the brands this is because the other side of the hardest part of the owner is like, you want to be able to finance your entity, not your personal. So when you start a business, like I said, you start with your personal credit cards. It's your history that gives you the startup capital. That's what they always say. I started on credit card because you have to start with your credit card. Either you get a trust or you get something else. But like for me, I don't come from it, so like I should be start with our credit cards and our knowledge, whatever this, like if you or a customer starts buying you, find a way to create a float, right? And in that same way, you eventually have to find a way to finance like a mortgage. You then do well enough if someone gives you a mortgage. So this is where we look at ourselves as like why I consider myself an asset, like financial services. I'm helping you build those assets. So like inventory, I'd rather help you find the timing of cash and understanding when that cash outflows predictably. And if I can help you find out like, look, this forecast looks like this is better. I'm not gonna ever get to a point of giving workflow to piping, but the piping allows us to get better debt for customers. So I think you said something about 13%. Like that's 5% above mortgage rates right now. And not many people can get even 13%.
Yeah.
Because your credit cards are 24%, but they pay 30 days. So like APRs, like your rates that you're paying, let's say you do 1.5% a month. That's an annualized 18% interest. And the problem is that most people think like, so MCA loans are pretty bad because they're like, they punish good payers. Think about it. If you pay it off a loan in 3 months, that lender took the risk and made 13%. But you paid off in 3 months. That's like a 40% return for them. And so what I'm trying to say is that like that type of financing, that type of visibility requires prudence, capital market fit, like the right type of cash flow, and the ability to leverage those things to get good debt. And that's where I think that's the other side of it. It's like it has to work both ways.
Yeah. You're touching on so many great points. I actually want to go into like Big Brother mode for a second.
Go for it, man.
And zoom out. You get to see a lot of data. You get to see a lot of brands.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go into specifics of any brand, but give us like what the heck's going on in the world right now, right? Like Where are people suffering? Where are people winning? And what is the composition of someone who's suffering, and what's the composition of someone who's winning? And I know it's not you can't be super general here, but also again you can't generalize because everyone's made differently. But what are some of those like qualities that you see in brands that are like, hey, like these are people are consistently doing these things wrong or not watching out for this, and these are the ones that are doing these things consistently right, and it's helping them improve in that realm of their financial prowess.
Yeah. That's a big question. Let me break it up into it. So where are people consistently? Where there's a lot. I think to your point on iOS, I think everyone has assumed things would be the way they were, and and I think there's it's like expectations and reality. And so like the reality is like,
so is their marketing mix is still higher percentage?
I'm saying that I think people are they're just moving it to Amazon.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Like, but then it's like net of there, and they're like looking at ROAS across the two as like, but they don't take like one, but there's a perfect mix for both. It doesn't have to be either or. Right. What I'm trying to say is, but when you do Amazon, then you have things like they won't pay you later. So then you have to think about like, there's more variables in the equation than it was. And so I think that's always harder. So I think where people are losing are when they're not adapting and not planning. And I think adapting and focusing and planning gives you planning gives you focus. And so yes, iOS changes hurt. I think supply chains are hurting. Okay. Like you used to do it. People used to buy for 12 months out. And now if that 12 months out in 2022 switched because your ROAS dropped to 2x and 4, and then you had to spend extra to get your inventory throughput down, then you burned extra cash, right? Because you spent more money on short term and you pre-bought extra. So you pushed the throttle to try to see whatever like the metric, like I say, revenue is vanity metric and gross profit is sanity, and your operating profit is reality. Like it's easy to push revenue. Yeah. So I think that the inability for people to slow down kind of created like a ripple effect, and I think that's where people are struggling is how do they slow down? Yeah. Like I heard in the market, people, last year was like, oh, get to profitability and don't grow as much, and now like I've heard venture capital say like people aren't hitting our models because they're not growing fast enough. It's like you're always chasing something. So I think the people that do well tend to focus on what they're good at, and be okay with like that return. So I think the businesses we've seen is like owners and founders that have taken advice and been thoughtful about things and adapted well, and then also been open and transparent. Like most people just tend to, like as founders, you just tend to fix everything yourself. But like a lot of people can be on there, so it's just really people that are open. They see their numbers. They think about it, even if they don't like. You know what I mean? They're taking all the variables into the ones that tend to be one focus. Like this worked and it's going to continue to work. I think is hard. That's the winning and losing. I think the balance sheet thinness is where I'm like. I think the biggest thing I see is that a lot of people are being stretched. Like AP goes up. People aren't getting paid as fast. Like all the the distributors are paying later because they're stretched. I think Amazon and Shopify has changed their payment out terms and thresholds, so they don't pay fast. So everyone's kind of holding. So it's a hard place to be at. I would say the ones that win are the ones that focus on what they do well.
Hey guys, we're gonna take a quick break from the episode to analyze some of our top performing ads in our ad account. A lot of people have been asking me, what have you been running, statics, videos? Well, I'm gonna show you our top performing ads utilizing a platform called Motion, which pretty much analyzes all the data of all of our top performing creatives, ROAS, by spend, by CTR, CPCs, everything. So check it out. What's going on, guys? Today we are reviewing another winner from our testing campaign that has had some pretty substantial spend and of course a return over a 1x. So let's get into it. This one I absolutely love because this is super native to the Instagram platform, right? You can post a story, you can ask a question. So this looks somewhat native to the platform, even though it's, a little bit conceptualized version of what the actual native feature is. but people know what it is, right? It's eye catching. It's a poll question, and it's one of these things that you can kind of address a question and have it resonate with other members of the same audience, right? So if you can ask a question that a lot of people are asking and provide a solution for it, being that your brand or the product is the solution, this is a really good strategy here, right? As you can see, the cost per click is slightly higher, but the CTR is in a decent place. We are seeing a 1.51 return on this, which is really good for us. So I would definitely test this out. Pro tip, if you want to actually whitelist this through a creator page, I 100% would test this. We actually have a few members from our Avi community that we've created Facebook profiles for. You don't need to hire a creator or an influencer to start whitelisting. You can literally create a random page right now and start running some of these ads. And the reason being is that it looks way more authentic than an ad coming from the brand. So if you are trying this style of ads, which is meant to mimic the native feature of asking a question via a poll, I would 100% try whitelisting and definitely test this out with different questions, different angles, in order to hit different parts of your audience. So try it out. Let me know how it goes, and good luck. If you're looking to sign up for Motion, click the link in the description for a special offer today.
Now, let's get back to the episode. What did you see the largest rise in from the ones that were struggling? What was the largest rise in terms of which solutions they opted into? Was it these term loans, or was it these the Clearcos and Shopify Capitals of the world, or do you see a lot more people trying to raise money even in a down market?
Yeah.
What's been like the solution for cash outside of obviously becoming more literate about it through a tool like Brightflow AI? What's been the additional solutions that you've seen many brands opt to in this?
I mean, that's where it comes down to, like, there's no, this is where, like, finance is an art. Like, the accounting is a generally accepted principle. The numbers you get are supposed to be a science, but this is an art where it's not one. If you, it goes back to that. If you hit great product market fit and you've hit growth and you've found channel distribution, you might find easier path to get one type of financing.
Yeah.
If you have a good cash flow and you have the ability to aggregate well and take advantage of your distribution channels, you can find another way to grow. It's the same kind of thing. It's
Makes
not
sense.
all, but I think that the ones that can sit back and actually think through the optionalities are the ones that tend to be the best. So I think it's a construct of all. Equity markets are hard right now. I think bigger funds have gotten too big. If you think pre-COVID, and the smaller funds, you got a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so there's a liquidity trap in the middle.
That's right.
Right? So there's the tweeners or whatever. So the businesses that did pretty well now have to stop. And if you're moving a ship to stop, it the balance sheet still moves. Inventory accrues, things happen. So you got to let it happen.
Yeah.
It's like playing the hands that
That's
are
right.
dealt. I think there's never been a better time to have a return of credit. People are looking to lock in rates. It is, I agree that people always think about debt but there's actually patient debt. There's responsible. You take mortgages for a reason, because it's a cash on cash return. So if you can invest that money back into your business at a better rate,
Right.
then you take the debt. It's a better return on invested capital.
Yeah.
But to get that right type of debt, which is longer term, because the hard part is the short term debt tends to be you have to pay expensive, and the majority of commerce brands, we found our data found that 80 to 90% of the revenue happens in 38 days. So to read that again, 38 days it's a daily revenue business. Think about it. Your week before Amazon, the seasonality, it's days. So if your days are like this and then you spike, you know what I mean? It's a very, so I think this is where, you have to, so if you have a daily revenue, then all of a sudden you have to pay it back, and you don't plan for that, and you have to rebuy inventory again. There's just a crunch.
Yeah.
So MCA loans, those things are really tough. So,
Yeah.
and it's tough to assess risk for new businesses. That's why it's hard to get mortgages for new people.
Yeah.
Have new business owners or something like that, where it's
Sure.
do you have enough history,
Right.
credit history?
Right.
So I think there's an opportunity. I think this doing everything little by little, not hacketing everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not you cut costs and now you're great. No, because then if you cut costs and you shut this down, then what happens next year when it's a slow burn?
Yeah.
Then you're just going to wait. It's like a formula.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about, the advice. That's my hope
Yeah.
with Brightflow was always just you see the data, Robbie emails and said we have our own really smart people that can do more because we also can get the data.
That's right.
And we can just be like, hey, listen, this is optional, and it just makes you think.
Yeah.
It's like you thinking about it is probably the best thing you can do to it right now. If you don't think about it, then you're probably doing the wrong thing.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. I look to you kind of obviously as, again, ability to see so many things from your purview, obviously with also building Brightflow. Any creative things that you've seen that kind of stand out? Obviously, we've seen and heard about the typical ways to go and be sensitive to your cash flow and also, make sure you have your capital efficient and whatnot. But again, I'm always curious with people who get to see a lot of different things. Are there some creative ways to think about cash flow, or just negative cash conversion cycles, or whatever it may be? And because a lot of our viewers, right, a lot of our listeners, they are in very similar boats of being deep 7, early 8-figure brands, and they're right in that pinch. And if that pinch isn't now, it's coming in 3 months, or they dealt it with it 3 months ago. And it's that cyclical part of the business. And there's this up and down, and it's like I think the conversations I feel like I'm always in is like, what do I do now? And like, you may have used Parker's credit card to get you through a 90-day float. And then you may have switched to, Divvy to get, 53 days here. But then you may have done a cash back program with Dash Fi to get 2% on ad spend. And then you use Amex Gold to max that out. And you're starting to use these tools, and it stops becoming about building your cash flow cycling better, and becomes more about like the incentives. And I think a lot of founders get caught up in the incentives of how great a program sounds, rather than understanding like what's the most creative art way to run finance. And I'd love to see, again, I'm giving you loaded questions, so I apologize, but I'd love to understand like what you've seen that maybe some people can at least consider or look at.
These are good questions, man. I don't think there's like a creative finance is always it's hard. I don't think it's a creative finance. I think it's more, but it makes sense. I think people do things because they grow into them. Like, for example, I just give one analogy. My wife happens to run a couple of schools for autism, like non-public schools. So it's like the school districts pay, but they don't work in summers. So they don't get paid from May till they come back, and then it's net 60. So like, she was like, I'm profitable, but I'm not making. So no matter what, I think the acceptance is that no matter what, if you're growing, you're gonna have these issues. So some form of it. It's not like an either or. Like I take everything. I think MC. All these things are good combination moves. One is just like always just ask your people to like get terms. There's no harm in asking.
How often should you ask?
I mean, I wish I did it more, but like you scale, like I'm my own CFO still right now of this financial services business, and I'm scaling past a lot of my own capacities, right? Like accounting statements. There's a lot of things I have to think about more now than, so I wish I asked more, but like the ones that are important, not ask more people, ask the ones that represent the majority of your things of like, I think I'm going to be more transparent. I think I'm going to do this realistically. And you want this, they also want money. They also want the cash back, so then they'll work with you. But I think most people like they get they'll find outside and don't want to have those conversations. Sometimes the conversations are good to have up front as like planning sessions. I mean, we do it in everything else. So you should be planning for finance as well. You do it in your own personal life. Probably do it here, but that's like it's hard to think about your business in that way for some reason. It's kind of it takes a lot of variables. The other thing is so asking is good. I think. Look, this is hard. I mean, 65% of small business loans are kept in the community banks, and people are going. Like, there's really a lot of turbulence. So I think the best thing is inward. So it's like supply chain. It's like purchasing better, like not trying too many things at one time. Small tests, big things. Like being okay with like a 25% growth. Like not worrying about that. Maybe spending next year being flat and getting higher margin. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like the long-term focus. So if you delay buying now, and then also like I think the other things are, I think a lot of people think they need help in other forms of people. Like the number one expense we see for these operationally lean businesses is consultants. It's like I just bolt on somebody. Oh, I've got somebody that may help me. And no, really, do they like how many? You know, it's like really expensive.
What are they doing?
Yeah. So I would say like look inwardly, figure out where like. So I think it's like planning. I think there's a combination of. There's no creative way. I think there's a combination way. It's like scenario planning is important. So what Ravi does, and then how you guys think about it. Then it's like which ones can we talk to? Yeah. And if it involves like you as a founder going talking, you have the relationship. Like it's easy to be outward and sell revenue. Sometimes you have to sell inward.
That's right.
And to your partners too.
Yeah.
Look at places like be open to like other types of options, and sign up. We can find ways to think about like structuring. You can structure equipment loans. Yeah. As a physical asset, so maybe get some liquidity in that way. Yeah. You can structure hard assets. Like it, I mean, everyone gets nervous about like, but in Pennsylvania, they have a deed to own. If you don't pay your rent, you give the house over. Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's you tried. It's the same thing with equity. It's not like a bad like, but at least. So I think those kind of things I think you can do is like different type of debt.
That's awesome.
It's okay to do short-term debt. I think it's okay to have these float things. Yeah. But I think it's really most important to be clear that you understand true numbers. Yeah. Not what you think in your head. Yeah. I mean, I just know how to describe that.
That's great.
Yeah. Truly, I mean, how many times have you, like, I looked at it too. I'm like, oh, this looks like a 10 million next. Oh, it's a 5 million next. Oh, I think this is going to be this way. Yeah. And then when you see it, it's hard to like adapt because it's like your baby. Yeah. As a founder, as you're building a brand, it's your baby.
That's right.
Well, you want your baby to like, you see your baby in one way. Right. So I think that's the most creative way is take advantage of everything, reduce a lot of these, like find the needs, invest in the things that matter. Like look at it as really as return on investment every year. Yeah. And see like, what am I investing in? Right. Even inventory. And then be open to ask your suppliers. Build long-term relationships, not short-term, but like as community banks. Yep. Right? Like simple things like that in a year and a half from now, you'll like turn 100%. Around and be like, oh, I need something, and that person shows up. Yeah. I think those are the things you have to plan for.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Really, really great optionality and just ways to change the perspective. Yeah. Chew on This is sponsored by one crucial strategy that we just can't ignore as D2C brands, and that's email and SMS. We'll be sending a ton, and guess who's our go-to? We use SendLane. It's not just another tool, it's a revolution. With real-time segmentation, you're reaching users with precision when you hit send on that email or SMS. The reporting UI, you may ask? It's a breath of fresh air. Simple, straightforward, and gets right to the point. No more sitting through confusing data and random charts you have no idea about what it's saying. And here's the crown jewel, their customer support. Round the clock, weekends, holidays, 24/7, 365, always open like 7-Eleven. No exceptions, they've got your back always. If you want to elevate your email and SMS game and you're tired of what everyone in the industry is used to using, check out SendLane and see why SendLane is the name that's buzzing in everyone's ears. Dive in and you'll thank us later. Now, let's get back to the episode. I want to take a second to go back on you building Brightflow into what it is. 50 plus people. You've raised, over $20 million, and you're been building this to truly service founders and operational teams like ours with a lot of good intent, right? Which is, again, it's not just to make us more money. It's actually to look at the full gambit, save more money, be more operationally friendly, find ways to understand your cash flow. What's been one of the challenges in building from your lens?
No, there's so many damn challenges, man. This is the second time. Like, this is actually like the first time, even when I was at the hedge fund, I was like a startup hedge fund. So the market I had no control. So I think I've accepted the no control stuff. So like the COVID, the markets, I think at some point you just got to do best. Yeah. You just gotta be able to view those as like, you're not going to you protect as much as you can. Yeah. So you can't solve everything. Right. I think, but the challenges have been far, and they still are there. So one is like the same problems I'm having right now is like same thing my founders have. Like like I said, I'm hitting my local capacity to scale in finance. I'm not like there's like a lot of things like accounting, like what's right. We acquired this brand, this Helio product from Circle Up, and like the original company, and because we want to build a data platform, but like, how do you value that? Like, what's the right, like, there's a lot of things you do and make decisions for that you have to then do the things in the back. Like accounting is like recorrecting, like fixing things and going back over it. So there's a lot of those pain points I deal with. So that's a challenge, I think, is admin stuff. Like, it's easy to build something and then it's hard to like find, you have to like really go through the right process. And sometimes you scale fast and then you have to correct it. So
That's right.
And so that's my struggle, is my own capacity to understand and be able to make decisions and plan. It becomes harder because very few people, can do what you do, like in some ways. So that's, I think, my struggle. The other struggle is I struggle with remote and communication. We have we tend to be a lot of ex-founders, older, a little bit on the senior side. We tend to be very introverted, like credit and engineers are most of our team. When I say credit, it's like, I don't view like loans, I say assessment of risk.
Right.
So our job is to give you risk management tools and for me to value your business by the assets you have, and then to be able to assess how you differently. So like that risk assessment is like, that's very introverted. So we have a lot of data folks. And so communication mediums, words used, things like telephone, it becomes like Slack is like a viral tool. It becomes like, it's just hard to manage a growing team. And it's hard to manage like alignment. It's hard to manage culture, like communication. If I'm going out and doing something, like I can't be internal facing as much if I don't communicate. Like, it's just a lot of space that used to be handshakes and, hey, can I check in with you? With knocking on the door, we don't get that. Most of our team is dispersed. We started in the Bay, and then COVID hit, and so then it became, most of our team is all over the U.S., so like 15 states. So,
wow.
It ends.
You guys do offsites and stuff?
We do offsites. It's again. It's like, it's actually great. We've done it since the beginning. We have things like, we have every employee gets an executive coach, and we found out they use it like once, 1.2. And it's executive coach. It's usually just like someone to help you grow.
Right.
So I believe like you like, we're a bunch of people, we're a team.
Yeah.
So if they grow and they can psychologically grow, then they're gonna be better output. And
Smart.
so we've given it, and so most people just leverage it. So we cover some certain percentage like healthcare. And so instead of office space, we have that.
Yeah.
So like things like that we've been able to do.
That's awesome.
But those things actually, then they have a local maximum. You give it to everybody. After you scale, like there's always gonna be a question. So you always have to, but I think those are the challenges. People, like culture is my number one thinking, because it's the best way to compete. Because like, have the best people focused on the right things. The other one is the changing, the challenges is the market. Like last year was the highest increase in SOFR rates in 25 years. Like equity market, like people are moving, things look great, not great, who knows what's happening. It ends up being pretty so uncertainty is a challenge. And I think my own, and then just scaling our own functional side of our business, just like our founders do, not the there's a lot of people looking for volatility, there's a lot of product market fit here. There's a distribution market fit. Our problem is the same thing as anybody else. How do we plan for these things? So I think that's what
What's your goal with Brightflow?
Like I said, a vision's always been like level the playing field for the everyday owner. I think I just want to, why can't I build the brand that helps financial services for the everyday owner? And I think it's like, if you can do that faster, like you can build tools to help KPMG do, but why not bring that same like opportunity for like merchant bank kind of services for the brands? So make it easy for people to just run sustainable businesses. Like, why not have a good life? Just, you could, build people do it all the time.
It's amazing.
But for some reason online, they think it's like one way, this way.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can run a nice, like a utility business in some local market and make great money, seven-figure, and just reap the rewards.
Yeah.
But for some reason, online businesses has to be like, oh, it has to go this way.
Yeah.
Because you're just always inundated with the loop.
Expectation,
Yeah. It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
I think you have to have the right capital providers to do that, because equity holders are naturally, you have to go all or nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Or someone's expectation. So that's my long-term goal, man. I'd like to build the next, I've always been a B2C person. I'd like to build the next brand in financial services.
That's awesome.
That's it.
Yeah, so obviously AI is pretty prominent in Brightflow. It's right there in the name. So I guess what are your thoughts on AI in the industry in general? Is every company going to start having to adapt or adopt some form of this in their business? Or just want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, man. So I think the ability to do simple tasks is now going to be the thing that AI does like really well, is like repetitive things that are like categorized. So I think there's a lot of simple tasks that done. I think back in the day it used to be, when I was a banker, it'd be manually pulling reports to an Excel file to, you know, the finance person, to QuickBooks to an Excel file and reconstructing it, to using a BPO in India to do it. Now it's like, I think it's the next level. And I think in terms of workflow management, it'll be really helpful. So people will have the tools to do simple, like visibility stuff, I think is really where it comes into. So categorization, the whole SKU stuff. Yeah. Like at some point, I think I'll make it easier to do all those kinds of piping stuff. When I think about AI, I think of a human in the loop. Yeah. So my VP of engineering, Jamie, brought this thing all the time. We were thinking about what's our system, and like she's like human in the loop. And the loop is what I consider like a repeatable place where the AI can go, because it's like you have categorized data, it's clean, you have tons of it, and you can build a repetitive like model that just continues to repeat and learns. Yeah. And so you do machine learning and like statistics, like forecasting is where we spend our time. So AI for forecasting, I think, is going to be massive. Yeah. Or like better data, better inputs to make forecasting more accurate. Right. Yeah. So I think that makes better planning. And so I think, and more visibility faster, like things like you can't wait for your accounting book statements to close. So how do I get to cash flow? We're still not there. Yeah. But like I always tell my team, like we want to be like somewhere 50-50, and then maybe hopefully one day 80% loop, 20% human. Yeah. But I think these two places you need the human. Like you always need someone to give the owner advice on finance, the planning, because that's one perspective is their perspective. They might not have the right perspective. Yeah. So that's why you're always looking for those. So I think the way the AI will help my industry, and I think about the reason why I've thought it was big, is if I can make the simple things accessible. That's why I have a free product. And we offer a free product, then they trust us. Then we have the capacity to give them a much, much better advice, like that human like planning stuff at a much lower cost. So I think AI will drive down the cost of human advice. So like instead of paying $2,000 an hour for like a banker from Goldman, or you're doing 2%, it's like this real estate stuff that happened recently with like the changes in who gets commissions and the openness. I think if the simple stuffs are easy, then what's the value? And I can see it and you can see it, then your value has to be really good. That's right. To generate a higher return. So I think that's where I think of ourselves, is like when I talk about the brand, I'd like to be helping these grow assets, because it's not just a one size fit all. But if I can give it to you faster, and then it's less people, then I'm not charging as much. That's true. So you're not having like a 30% of your team is recurring contractors. You can label it whatever you want, but it's expense. Right. So I think that's where the AI goes into finance. Like my side, much better on the visibility, really great access points, lowers the cost, lots of people like AI for accounting, AI for this, AI. Right. But you don't do your accounting, some bookkeeper does. Yeah. What you pay for it, how fast do they do it? Like, data snipper with KPMG, there's a lot of those side. But then it's the KPMG that charges you all the money in margin. So I think that margin compresses for the human side. Yeah. I think the same thing with SaaS. Like SaaS is just a buzzword for deferred engineering cost, right? If you think about it, they started in managed service up. They started it as a way to say, you don't have to pay a contractor for this Salesforce thing. Right. We have the consultant, we build the pipes, and then it's easy. But they still charge you the service, but it's like SaaS is just a deferred engineering. So if the engineering becomes easier, that's what they're talking about, SaaS businesses. At some point, what are the SaaS businesses that become commodities? I think the history is commodities, meaning historical data. And the categorization of inventory and stuff like that will make better decisions. I think the advice is still needed. That's it.
Great point.
I don't know. Yeah, thank you.
No, it was awesome.
I was just trying to. That's what I think. I don't know if it's right or not, but there's a lot of smart people out there
good answer.
that are better than my 50-person company. If I'm trying to go after Jamie Dimon, it's like those guys aren't bad. They got 10. AI, Goldman Sachs. I don't know about that. Yeah.
So Robbie, one thing we do at the end of each episode is we I know you guys you gave a lot for everyone to chew on. But if there's one thing that someone should go home and chew on, one takeaway, one key brief, what's something someone should definitely take away from this episode and either apply to their business, think about, or do differently?
Be open with yourself on these numbers. Like, look at them. Like, actually sit there and just spend time with them, and don't look at it as some, like, just actually sit there, and even more so, let somebody else who, I think finance is like anything else, your own finances. You don't tell your parents or anybody else that your parents are gonna ask you what you do, how much you make. You don't want to share it, but this is one of those things you have to share, like your portfolio. So like, be open, find something that you can sit down with, to look at it, whether it's yourself. If you don't have the capacity to do it, be open with yourself and find somebody. I think that's it. Like, I think most people just like gut check. But like actually data driven, just like go in and look at it with an openness and truth. Like, that's it. It's hard to do.
It's and I think it goes off
really hard to do.
It really stems from the better late than never concept, right? It's truly probably what you see a lot of.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to put into something next week it'll work out. But like, what happened, you got to like really make the right. I think those are the risks. See if you be optimistic, you sometimes have to be realistic too.
Well, chew on that.
Yeah, there we go.
If you want more from us, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and check out the website chewonthis.io.